And like any good Russian dish, you'll want to start with potatoes. These are russet potatoes, the cheapest kind, which I think Boris would approve of. We will be using these potatoes in a mash, so it's best to remove all of the peel for a consistent creamy texture. You can wash the potatoes or not, I always do, but since we're removing all of the skin, you don't really need to do that. During this time, you'll want to get a medium-sized pot filled about halfway with water and set it on high. You'll want to cut the potatoes into pieces a little larger than your thumbnail and about the same width as your thumb. There are no measurements in this recipe because Boris does not believe in measuring anything. You're going to let these boil for about 8 minutes. A good mashed potato needs to be soft, but not grainy. To check if they're cooked all the way through, take a fork and stab a potato. If it falls off or breaks in half, they're done. Or as Boris says, if the potato screams Russian at you. But I don't understand Russian, so the fork trick works fine. Then drain the water from your pot using a colander or sieve at your sink and set it aside. In the same pot, lower the temperature to simmer and put in a good pat of butter. You can add more butter for taste, but I also pour in milk later when the potatoes are being mashed to get it smooth. This is optional, but you can chop a small white onion into very tiny pieces and cook it with butter in the pot until the onion is slightly translucent. This will give the mashed potatoes some texture and add a classic Russian ingredient since all they seem to grow is potato and onion based on most of Boris's recipes. I had made pelmeni before, and I find that using onion and garlic powder makes it more flavorful than using it fresh, but chopping veggies is too fun to pass up. Regardless of if you're using fresh or dried seasoning, stir it around the butter mixture about 30 seconds and dump in your cooked potato. Then the fun part, bust out your meat chopper and mash your potatoes to your desired consistency. I like mine pretty smooth, with small lumps for texture. In this next step, I'm going to take a mixing bowl and add about 150 milliliters of water, 1 egg, and a generous amount of salt, and whisk it all together to create the basis of our noodle dough. Then add flour to the egg mixture until it becomes a ball that you can knead with your hands and roll out flat. The reason I chose a Russian dish is because Russians have been painted in a bad light in the media due to their president, Vladimir Putin, wrongly invading Ukraine. In reality, the majority of the Russian population did not ask for the war, and Boris is a very accepting YouTuber. He simply wants to make food the way Babushka does, and share his culture with people outside of his country. Scroll through the comments on his videos and you'll be awash with admiration and appreciation for Boris and his work. People adore him because he's fallen on tough times. He had to be homeless for a month and still found the time to release videos for his audience. Boris may be a role model for his optimism, but to me, I admire him for his ability to make such a good dumpling. Once you get the dough into a sheet that's about 1/4 of an inch thick, grab a round drinking glass and start pressing it into the dough like a cookie cutter. Do this step over and over until you run completely out of dough. To make a good noodle pocket, take a circle into the palm of one hand and flatten it with the fingertips of the other. Alternatively, you can roll around like a pizza. Then, take a scoop of the potato, which should be cooled off by now, and place it into the center of the dough. Fold one half over the other and pinch the ends. You should be left with this crescent moon shape, which stands in well as a smile. You'll need to introduce another pot to the stove and set that to boil again. Can't forget to salt the water. Throw in a couple pelmeni at a time so they don't take up the entire surface of the water. If you make them small, like I did, 5 to 4 is a good number to cook at once. Make sure to stir them so they don't stick together. Boil until cooked, which is about 7 minutes. Now Boris calls this a pelmeninator, so go ahead and use the pelmeninator to remove the pelmeni from the pot and transfer them to a folded paper towel or strain them in a colander to shake off the water. And this concludes the recipe. I gave each pelmeni a thin layer of sour cream, just as Boris would do it. Try this dish and understand the true basis of Russian comfort food.